What's happening, everyone? My partner's Ian's keeping it real. What's happening, everyone? And welcome to El Chile Boxing Talk. We have a very special guest with us for the first time. We have Drew Evo from the Shoe Shine. Glad to have him here. You can catch him on Monday nights with Dave from the 408. Great show. And we got George with Off the Ropes Boxing and MMA, and the homie, Nopal Buxianos, man. And we got some great topics, and we're glad that you're here. So welcome. And I want to salute some people that are in the chat early. JC, thanks for joining us, brother. El Chido Boxeo. Saludos, Raza. A-Rod, man, good to see you. Run PMC is here listening in, bro. And, you can always get a link if you ever want it, brother. And then Koala, thank you so much for joining us. Well, hey, let's get right into it, dude. I'm ready to talk some boxing, and I want to get to it right away because we had some big news, and everybody's talked about how they feel already about this. But, we haven't had our take yet, so we're going to get right into it. Canelo versus Triple G3 is official. All right, man, Drew, why don't you start us off as your, since you're our special guest and everything, we know that, the rest of us might be a little partial towards Canelo. So let's see what you have to say first, man, and then we'll just go from there. What do you think about this fight being made?
A waste. A complete fucking waste. And seriously, I thought he won both fights, Triple G. And I'll be honest, a lot of people did. But it's just too late. It's too late for a third fight. I can understand that the third fight was a year after the second fight, but this is 4 or 5 years later. He's 40. He ain't shit no more. Canelo's gonna easily beat him. He lost to Davarian Chanco. This is bullshit. Any of these people think this is a good fight. You guys are awesome shit.
Damn, Drew. So you're starting off hot, man. Well, I already got a lot to say to that, but let's just keep it in order. George, do you agree? Well, you know what? Let me start with Nopal because George is such a polite guy. You know what I mean? I want somebody like Nopal to answer back to something like that. Nopal, go ahead, brother.
I mean, Drew is partly right from a pure boxing standpoint, but the truth is, we watch, these type of fights for the, the drama and all that, the build up. Those have become the best things about these type of fights. The build up, the fans talk, the banter, all that. So, you know what I mean? Just Drew, don't be afraid to take it back to the WWE casual days, of boxing, bro. Enjoy the build up and take the ride for what it is, man. It's all good.
Well, I saw R. Kelly's sex tape in the build up.
All right. Well, Drew, all I gotta say is, I think Canelo haters, I think they love this fight because they get to bitch and moan about the first two fights all they want. And then when Canelo whips Triple G's ass again, they're not going to give Canelo any credit for it. You know what I mean? So they just get to complain for 3 full good months. You know what I'm saying? All right. Well, there we go. I'm going to get I got more to say, but George, what do you think about this fight being made, brother?
I mean, both great points, from a standpoint of where we are at when we're watching this, we're like, well, yeah, it's a little bit late, but I mean, it's still at the end of it, it's boxing, it's entertainment. I think Calix, if you weren't too intrigued or if you weren't too convinced about it, just go back and watch some of his takes on it. It'll make you excited, just like tomorrow's night's fight, right? It's gonna be entertaining, but the whole build up to it made it exciting. I think that's what will get people is the build up to it, knowing that the bad blood is finally going to be settled. I mean, yes, I do believe it was a little too late. It did happen in 2018. But hey, man, I'm not complaining. It's boxing. I love boxing. I still think Triple G, can be competitive. I know he didn't have a great start against Morado. And that was a 2-year layoff. And you see it, he was a little shaky. And then once he finally kind of got his composure, he got comfortable. You could see him, fire away his jabs. And you seen him go to the body a little bit more with more straight shots. I think that was a little bit different to see from Triple G. You didn't see too many hooks, but you've seen a lot of straight shots to the body. And I think it's just, you know, sometimes you just have that dancing partner that, you know, you guys are going to make it beautiful. And I think that's what it is. These two guys are going to make it a bit of a bloodbath. So it is what it is. I know, you know, the complaining and all that is, it's not bad. It don't bother me, but it's a fight.
And, you know, let me add something, George. You know, who are we kidding here? This is still going to be a super great fight. You know what I mean? It's going to be a badass fight. So, you know, I think what it is everybody, you know, like, they're kind of like in tune to protecting Triple G for some reason. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, the guy's too old, but he ain't too old to go beat up a bum, right? Like Murata. You know, that's completely okay, right? But no, as soon as you get somebody that's on the same level, oh, nah, now he's too old. But, you know, we saw that fight with George Foreman. The dude was like 50 years old, still fighting everybody. So, you know what I mean? The truth is, Triple G is not too old. He beat the fuck out of Murata just recently. So he's not too old for that. You know what I mean? To keep the streak going of knocking out bums. So, you know what I mean? It's going to be a great fight. So let's just enjoy it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I want to add something to that as well. It is at 168. I mean, I know it is Triple G's first time there. So we don't know, you know, his body might not take so much wear and tear like he has at 160. So we might see like a different, a resurgence of Triple G. It's the fight I'm sure he's been wanting. And, you know, you show up to the level of your competition. And you show up to your rivalry. But I think it's going to be a pretty good fight for as long as it lasts. I believe it won't go 12.
Well, I'm going to add something to it. After listening to No Paul George and saw Collick's points on it, I'm still not excited.
Okay. Well, hey, man, you can feel however you. Oh, sorry, go ahead, man.
And let's look at it like this: early in the fight, Murata was giving it to Triple G. So let's not forget about that.
Oh, man. I want to give a shout out to Nando Llamas, who's in the house, and he says, folks were rolling their eyes at Pacquiao Marquez 4. That's true. Don't underestimate bad blood. That's another great point. I mean, dude, these were great fights. I just rewatched the first one for the hell of it. You know, we're going to get to the controversial rescore, Canelo versus Triple G 1 and 2, when we're ready to. You know what I mean? I have a feeling everybody's going to start doing it. Maybe people will be doing it twice, too. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with covering those two fights. You know what I mean? Remy here is giving a salute. Thanks for joining us, Remy. You know, and then Remy makes another good point. He says that Canelo needs a tune-up before the rematch. Okay, check this out. Like, have you ever seen such like an impressive opponent after taking a loss? I mean, usually like a fight after a big profile loss like is a little bit more of a gimme. If you look at these odds, if they hold, are the tightest that Canelo's ever had, being the favorite, I believe. Otherwise, you'd have to go back to him being the underdog against Triple G. And I think that second fight, but I mean, like, these are very close to the Golovkin odds, you know? So, and I think it's important to reference the odds, you know, because I think it helps keep everybody honest a little bit, you know what I mean? To an extent. I think that these odds are appropriate. Canelo is a negative 400 favorite. Like, that's not that wide if you look historically. This is a good fight. And, you know, the other thing, too, is, like, I do feel like Triple G fans are kind of writing off Golovkin. And, you know, I don't really understand why. You know, he's the #1 ranked middleweight. If you are a Golovkin fan, okay, let me talk to Drew real quick, Drew, you know, since we got you here. I'm just curious, brother, like, you think he beat Canelo both times? Yeah. I mean, do you think that he beat Jacobs and Davarian Chanco?
I thought Jacobs beat him. And I thought Davchenko beat him.
Okay, so you think that he's a little bit more perhaps long in the tooth? I agree with that. You know, to an extent, I think that, yes, age is always a factor. And yes, Golovkin is 40. But to me, he's still the #1 ranked middleweight going up to face the super middleweight champion. And like you all were referencing Calix, I mean, he does make a great point. Like, when you throw these two together, like, yeah, man, it always makes for a great fight. I do think that Canelo is vulnerable these days, and he has to win this fight in another manner. Like, you know, when I watched the Bivol fight, you know, I was really concerned with the amount of grit that Canelo did not show. He's going to have to show it in this one, and I think he knows it. Like, yeah, I know that as Canelo, I know that Canelo knows he can dominate on the front foot, possibly, but like, he's going to have to show it. And if he doesn't have what it takes to continue marching on the front foot towards Golovkin to dictate the footwork like he did in the first 2 fights. If he can't do that, he's going to be in for a long night because Golovkin is game and he is 40, but you know, I mean, you could make the argument that he has a better tank than Canelo.
Mm-hmm. And then I think also, you know, like they say in age for boxers, a power, like, you know, you have your different styles. You have a guy that's a power puncher, and that's all he relied on, and his athleticism pretty much his whole career. And then once he hit an age, that goes out the window. Then he's got to rely on his skill. And I think Triple G is pretty skilled. Like he's you know, he's got the basics down. You see it, the jab, the body shots. So you know, I think he's going to keep it as competitive as he can. That's what I think.
Yeah, and you know what? These days, the way, like I've been saying, Canelo's not as dedicated as he used to be. And like just like George mentioned, you know, Triple G's gonna have a great advantage of being able to you know, have that 8-pound allowance now because, you know, he hasn't been looking too good at the weigh-ins. You know what I mean? I mean, he's killing himself to make that weight still, you know? And like so there's a couple things here, you know, and like I said, I don't think Canelo's as dedicated to the sport anymore. So, you know, there's that. So we never know. This could turn out to be a close fight. All possibilities are open.
Oh yeah. And Koala says that Triple G turned down a fight in 2020. Hey man. And then like Nando says, man, please hit the like, you know, and Nando here says that the boxing media has been laying out pillows and excuses for Triple G since day one. You know, I kind of feel like that way too, you know, like the way everybody's writing off Golovkin, like it's shocking to me. Like, you know, these odds, right, are closer than like a lot of fights that we've seen recently. You know, if you look at like a lot of these fights, like most of them have been like 5-1. We're looking at like Tyson Fury, Dillian White. I think that the Spence Ugas odds were just slightly closer. You know what I mean? But like if you look at like the Benavidez odds that he just had at 20-1, you look at this weekend's odds, which are wider than this fight. Like it's just surprising to me that people aren't a little bit more excited. Like, and you know, that's another question that I wanted to ask you guys. You know, like where are the Triple G fans? Like, you know, did they just kind of go away and they stayed away? Like to me, like he's still very formidable. Was that just like an era of like what were they? Were they like anti-Canelo fans, or was the YouTube boxing community just like bigger back then and we had different segments? Like because like, you know, I don't know. To me, I think Triple G should have some kind of aura still. In my opinion, like I personally think, Drew, that I think he beat Jacobs. We're going to take a look at that Davarian Chanco fight because, like I said, I have my doubts about how I scored it the first time. So we got to take another look at that one. But I didn't think that was necessarily a robbery when I saw it. He's very formidable. So I want to know, dude, where are the Golovkin fans? I mean, are we going to see them at all? Like, so Drew, were you like a Golovkin fan and now you just like, he's too old for you to back him? Like, what are your thoughts, man?
No, I'm not a Golovkin fan.
Okay, so you're just a Canelo hater?
Fuck them both.
All right. And here's something else I wanted to ask too, and it's been on my mind. You know, like I wanted to ask, like, you know, why is it that fans get so angry about like the Canelo versus Triple G results? 1 and 2, like we've done controversial rescores, and we've done some recently that we have classified as a robbery. There's lots of fights historically that are robberies that we've all agreed on, right? But, you know, we have noticed that, you know, history forgives everything. So, you know, people aren't going to get so angry about this, like, you know, when the next generation comes around. So like 5 years, sorry to tell you all this, if you're a Canelo hater, like, you know, people aren't going to care that much. Right now, people are pissed and they keep talking about this fight. Like, I can't think of another fight, you know, like, you know, 4 or 5 years ago and another fight like 3 years ago that we just keep referencing all the time. But there's something about this dynamic that, man, it just continues to get brought up. And is it because Canelo was on top for so long? Like, what do you guys think it is? Nopal.
You mean the bad blood? Is that what you mean?
Just why do you think that so many people are pissed off about the first and second result? Like, even if they feel the way they feel, you know, what I notice is like, they're like really angry about it. And I just, you know, in the grand scheme of things, compared to all the other robberies that do happen, it just seems like a little imbalance to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I know what it is because you know what, I was paying close attention to these fan bases. You know, I was actually a huge Triple G fan around that time until I realized something key. And Drew, you got to excuse me, but I think it had to do with the tribalism. You know, the white boxing fans, they were looking for a savior around that time. And Triple G just happened to be the guy. And now, you know what I mean? Because there is a thing. I feel like a lot of boxing fans are they kind of look at they kind of look at kind of like feel jealous of the Mexican fan base, bro, because you know we're the breadwinners, we sell pay-per-views and all that. So these guys were looking for these racist dudes were looking for a savior around that time, and Triple G was the damn dude. He was knocking everybody out. Sure, you know, in retrospect, the guys he knocked out were all shitty boxers, but he was saying all the right things. You know, I want to unify. I want to move up in weight. I want to do this and that. And guess who ended up doing all that stuff? You know, Canelo came to the rescue for us. And, you know, he's the dude that did everything that Triple G was supposed to do. You know, he ended up, you know, taking that game plan and actually making it happen. So when these guys look at a guy like Canelo, they look at him with such disdain and such jealousy because he's everything that they wanted from Triple G. Triple G just turned out to be all talk. And, you know, and basically fast forward to right now they still kind of have a soft spot for Triple G, so much that they want to protect them from this fight. And they never wanted this fight to happen, the third. Not at these circumstances. They were perfectly okay with rookie ass Canelo going in there and getting fucking slaughtered by Triple G. They're damn okay with that. But, you know, now that the tables have turned and, you know, time was on Canelo's side, they're not okay with that. And, you know, they want to protect Triple G. Sorry, Drew, but I had to say it, man.
Dude, Triple G protectors running amok. Drew, do you want to, you know, and we're not here to like yell at you, you know, to make you like, you know, the source of our frustration, you know, but we do love like another opinion on Chile, and all we do is speak our own opinions. You know what I mean? So
and you know what? Truthfully, Chicano, that has nothing to do with Drew because he's not one of these guys.
Exactly.
Anyway.
He said he's not necessarily a fan of either, but we respect his opinion. You know what I mean? So, Drew, do you have any thoughts on that, brother? I'm not sure if he's saying like I'm going for the white skinned guy because I mean Canelo's light skinned too, and he's Irish, even though Drew won't admit it. You know,
he's not fucking Irish. I will not claim him as my own.
He's got an Irish grandpappy, dude. I'm
gonna say this right now. He got robbed twice already. Why the fuck I'm gonna watch this fight again? Why the fuck are we willing to wait for another fight like this for him to get robbed again if someone beats him?
So you don't even think that the second fight was close?
Nah, I thought Canelo, like the first fight, I thought Triple G won 9 rounds, and the second fight, 41 8 rounds. Like, seriously, this was really pathetic because, hey.
9 rounds, Drew. Come on, bro. What the?
No, Paul, I'm talking. Zip it. I'm taking over the show now. Zip it. So, like, no, seriously, like, you know, he got the Floyd treatment in those two fights, man. He's trying to be the Floyd Mayweather now, replacing Floyd and everything. And I gotta admit, this is really, like, I don't believe the Bivol fight was a cherry pick. Let's just say that right now. I don't believe the Bivol fight was a cherry pick going wrong because I don't believe Bivol to be a cherry pick. I thought he was a better fighter than fucking Kim Smith. I thought he was a better fighter than fucking Billy Joe Sanders overall. I think Caleb Plant was a better boxer, but, you know, more pressure-wise, it was Bivol, but you get what I'm saying about that. But at the end of the fucking day, this was really, I don't really think this was really, should be exploited for a third fight. If you're going to have a third Triple G fight, you should have had it a year after the second one or a year and a half later. Nobody really, like, people that care about this are really trying to get a hard-on for Canelo. And I'm sorry. Just trying to get a hard-on for Canelo, somebody. Like, if you want to get a hard-on, get Viagra if you can't get it up.
Drew, let me ask you something, okay? Don't you think this is a good fight? Like for after taking a loss, like isn't this a decent fight, or do you think what do you think Canelo should do if he's not going to fight Golovkin? What is it that he needs to do?
Yo, don't take at least don't take on. Please don't take on John Ryder because we are. Let me tell you something. Before he lost, the rumor 3 fights were going to be Bivol, Triple G, and John Ryder as the third fight. An easy ass fucking fight. He was probably going to knock the dude out inside fucking 5 rounds. and everything, like a fucking Yordle, if you want to look at it. But tell you the truth, I really think now is the point. Doesn't matter if he loses the fight and everything. He really has to put on get the best fighters out there to fight him. It doesn't matter because tell you the truth, I don't see Canelo fighting past 35. Don't see it.
I totally agree with you on that. Like, some people think he's going to be able to fight until like 36, 37. Like, I think that, and it is what it is. Like Mexicans, like with a gas tank, like very few of them can operate at a high level later on in their career. Like I think Juan Manuel Marquez, also because of his style, was able to kind of carry on 38, 39, but once you start getting like 34, 35 as a Mexican, if you look at like Chavez, De La Hoya, like it's not so pretty. You know what I mean? Like there's a quick slide, and I'm not trying to generalize, and everyone's different, but Canelo already has a little bit of a tank problem. You know what I'm saying? I could see him only being around, and I've been saying this, I could see him only around till maybe like 34 at the most. You know what I mean? Like we're entering like a different stage of Canelo's career, in my opinion, where, I mean, I'm not saying they're all going to be 50-50. Like I think that he will beat Golovkin. I think that he will beat Benavidez and Charlo and Andrade, but after that, he's going to get older, and there's always going to be that next guy to see, and things could change. You know what I mean? So, even if he lost out, like he would still be like he would have the most impressive resume out of everybody. You know what I'm saying? And then I wanted to highlight what Nano here says. He goes, the massive hype around Triple G never got justified. That's why people get so pissed off. And it's true, man. For people that wanted to give Golovkin like this juggernaut Terminator type reputation, like, yeah, in the end, it was never justified. I mean, he's never even been lineal middleweight champion. He's kind of limited.
I don't even think he's had a one Ring Magazine belt, bro.
Right? That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think so. You know what I mean? I'm kind of looking at it. I mean, he's been a unified champ multiple times in the middleweight division, which is great. But I mean, he never really took the middleweight division on after Canelo left. Canelo went up to 168, cleaned it out, beat all the undefeated champions. Golovkin, he probably could have made any fight that he wanted to, if you think about it. I'm sure he could have gotten that fight with Charlo. I'm sure he could have gotten that fight with Andrade. He could have been collecting belts, but instead he waits to fight Murata. And I understand that there was some money to be made there, but I mean, that's just how I feel about it. And JC here says that the second fight wasn't close at all, And then Remy says here that, Canelo's Irish, and Nopal knows where the Alvarez family is originally from. That's right, man. Yeah, and Drew, he's talking mess, but we accept him, because Drew's the man. You know what I mean? So if he wants to pop off, I understand, like, he thinks that we might be, fanboys, but, we're more like, fans of the torchbearer of Mexican
Trust me,
boxing.
I know a couple of fanboys.
You like to call them out, Drew. Here's my thing, though. I think if you had like an Irish successful boxer, you might be high on him, but, we'll never know, so. So Canelo's going to be fighting Jake Paul at 35. Like, hey, that's a good call. So does anybody have any final thoughts on this before we move to our next subject?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to the BS that Drew said about Canelo, how he wants to be the next Floyd. Come on, bro. You have no reason to say that, man. Floyd would have never fought a dude like Triple G. Canelo was he was an underdog in both of those fights. Floyd would have never took that challenge. So, and he would have never fought a dude like Bivol either. Regardless if they put Canelo ahead on the odds on that, we all knew that was going to be a very tough fight. And there's other fights that Floyd would have never took. So, just the whole thing, Floyd would have already probably been on his Money Mayweather shit right now, where he just takes the easy fights and that's it, man. Look how long it took him to fight Pacquiao. So, I think that, you were wrong on that, Drew. But
yo, no Paul, that sound that just was in the background, that was for you to stop.
Damn, Drew. And speaking of the background, whoever made that chair noise, that's the one with the feedback, man. So if you can mute when you're not talking, that helped the audio quality. Thank you, brothers. All right, well, hey, you know what? We got Drew for another 10 to 15 minutes, man. So what we're going to do is we're going to shift gears and get right into our controversial rescore before we highlight the upcoming fight between Tank Davis and Rolly Romero. So we're going to the rescore. We're going to big George Foreman versus Shannon Briggs. All right. We're going back all the way to 1997. Now, this was a really interesting fight, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it because, man, you learn a lot when you do these rescores. And, man, there was all kinds of context that I want to give you guys. So going into this fight, George Foreman remains the lineal champion. Okay, he beat Moorer for the WBA and IBF titles. Okay, and then he forfeited the WBA, and then he went on a string of wins. Okay, to this fight against Shannon Briggs. Okay, and it was kind of interesting. The guy's like 48 years old, and this guy's making at least $5 million a fight. He made $5 million for this fight, which in today's money would be $9 million. So George Foreman, as the lineal champ, right, is clearing some serious money back in the day. So he beats Moorer, right, and he just keeps on going. Okay, and he also got stripped of the IBF. Now he fought this guy named Axel Schultz, and it was a controversial win for George Foreman. Now, when we were looking at controversial rescores, I never saw any reference to this fight, but apparently people think it was a robbery. So the IBF mandated a rematch, which Foreman decided against, right? And so Foreman would have a list of opponents he could choose from, up-and-comers, and a really impressive list. And he could just choose, and HBO and his promoters would authorize it, and then boom, you know what I mean? He would be able to get this fight and then keep himself high up in the rankings, you know. But the main fight that was really big at this time was Lewis versus Holyfield being made, and they each had a strap, you know, which I thought was really interesting. So when I went back and started watching that Foreman versus Axel Schultz fight, Jim Lampley was really just talking about how, you know, it was all about the lineal, you know, and not about the alphabet soup, you know. But by the time we get to this fight, Foreman versus Briggs, right, with Holyfield, Lewis being a hot fight, he's making it seem like, you know, it's some kind of joke that George Foreman was the lineal champion. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, you know, over the years, there was a handful of years, the dynamic changed on how important lineal was versus the alphabet soup titles. Now all of a sudden, you know, and to keep in mind, to be fair, you know, Holyfield had already beaten Foreman, right? But this was before the Moorer fight. So, and Lewis was a bad guy at the time too, you know. So all I'm saying is, like, the context is interesting, because I've always been a little bit more of a lineal guy, but it's weird, like, as the lineal champion who was defending, who had not been beaten officially yet, like, Foreman was a little bit of a side act. On top of that, too, you know, people were really concerned about this man taking some abuse. You know, he was taking a lot of hits. He was a lot older, going on 48 years old. And, you know, they had doctors giving their opinion on this fight, saying that, you know, from what they can tell, typically when you're about 80 fights in, that's when you start having brain damage that really just sticks around and can be delayed, so you wouldn't notice it right away. But, you know, George Foreman had this really interesting philosophy towards it. He said, hey, man, you know, if you talk negative to me about any of that stuff, like, I don't believe it. You know, I only think positive. You know, all those studies, it's got nothing to do with me. You know, and it's weird. I thought, like, his power of positivity was kind of like Deontay Wilder, which is funny because they're both just kind of like knockout artists without necessarily so much boxing finesse. So I kind of saw some parallels there. But Foreman said, I'm going to keep going until somebody knocks me out, right? So we go to the Briggs fight, who just come off a loss, right? Not much momentum, but he pulled him out, and we went to it. 48 years old against a 25-year-old, you know, and I think that's everything I'd like to cover before we get right into it. Drew, since you're our honored guest, man, what we'd like to do is have you start off first. Tell us, bro, like, how'd you like the fight? How'd you score it? And did you see it as a robbery?
It was a pretty good fight. I really thought Foreman was superb and had a beautiful jab the whole fight and everything, you know. He was very active. He landed a high percentage of his jab, and it went into combinations. And you could see a lot of the fight that Shannon Briggs was starting to breathe heavily through his mouth, where it looked like Foreman was fighting like the younger guy, everything. And I thought this was a robbery, complete robbery. When I looked at the scores and I heard the scores, I'm like, how the hell somebody had this a draw? And then how the hell do you have a 117, 113 card? And everything. I don't understand. I thought all three of these guys had the fight wrong. They were watching a totally different fight. They just wanted to get the older guy that was approaching 50 out of boxing, because they just did not want to see an old guy defend a championship and everything. But I had it Foreman winning by unanimous decision, 117-111. This was a complete robbery. I thought he clearly won the fight on points. I had like 3 swing rounds that I gave, like 2 of them to Foreman, 1 of them to Briggs. So this was really complete robbery. I don't know how these 3 judges got it wrong. One of them was actually a well-known judge in Reinsfeld, where the fuck his name is, but he's a fucking idiot. But yeah, 117, 111 Foreman.
All right. Thank you so much, Drew. Drew classified this one as a bona fide robbery, man. And you're welcome to hang out. If we're going to talk about it a little bit afterwards, but if you got a jam, brother, it was an honor having you on Al Chile. Drew, or excuse me, let's go to George. George, what'd you think about this fight, man, and how'd you have it?
Yeah, man, great fight. It's good to see or even go back to these fights back in the 90s. I remember a lot of the George Foreman fights, but I was young to like really understand boxing. I just remember being there, and you seen him compete. The 90s was was one of the golden eras of the heavyweights. You could throw Foreman's name in there easily with like Lennox Lewis, Holyfield, Mike Tyson. There's Riddick Bowe. There's so many other fighters that you could throw in there in the 90s of heavyweights, and Foreman's name actually sticks in there. And when people speak of Foreman, they remember that him being competitive, him having it was like he had 3 careers, right? His career was back like in the 70s or like late 70s against Ali. He loses that Ali fight, goes to beat Frazier, and I think he goes missing for like 8, I think through the 80s, maybe has a fight or 2, and then he comes back in the 90s and at 48 to be able to compete like that, and especially coming off a loss against Holyfield, it just kind of shows like the levels to these guys, right? Like Holyfield's level was crazy, man. I was a big Holyfield and Lennox Lewis fan, so it was awesome to remember those fights. But Foreman at 48, the way he performed was absolute crazy. Like the jab, I remember them saying this too, that his jab, he didn't really use a jab too much, but like this jab was just like, it was like it pretty much set the tone, and you can see it did set the tone pretty early on. But I did give Briggs the first round, and I think that was probably one of his best rounds. I also gave Briggs, looking here, I gave him the 5th and the 10th. And in the 5th and the 10th, those to me were 2 of the 5 rounds that were swing rounds for me. I had this 8-4. I wish I would have done a little more research to see exactly where Foreman went after this. And on paper, we look at this, we see a 25-year-old young guy in his prime against 48, just like we were mentioning, Canelo and Triple G. You would think, man, this is a dangerous fight for the older guy. You got the knockout artist in Shannon Briggs. You don't want to see Foreman get hurt. And I think maybe that's just something he just carried with him into this fight. He just wanted to prove his point. Like you said, his positivity, his mindset, and he proved it, man. And it was man, to me, I feel like this probably could be one of his best performances, and especially late in his career, even though he did lose this fight. As far as a robbery, man, it's going to be hard to say this or hard to like even call it a robbery, but I think I'm gonna have to kind of agree on here with Drew, even though I had an 8-4 for Foreman. I'm gonna say it was a robbery, man, for sure. Especially when you got a card, calling out the draw and then having it so wide, 117, 111. But I have Foreman winning 8-4.
All right. Thank you so much, George. Excellent. So we have 2 wins for Foreman, and both considered to be robberies. And to answer your question, George, so this fight was Foreman's last fight. There was talk of him coming back to face Larry Holmes for $10 million, but the money could not be presented in time. And then Foreman, the lineal champion, who hadn't lost since before the Moorer fight, right, and had a lineage that went all the way back to Ali. And then in the telecast says that you could even mark this lineage back all the way. So this was one hell of a lineage. He retired and never fought again, which is interesting because, like, I kind of remember, like, I have vague recollections of this fight, but I have more recollections of the fight that went on after this. Briggs would go on to fight Lennox Lewis after this, and I do have more clear memories about that one. But before we get further into it, Nopal, what'd you think about this fight, brother, and how'd you have it?
It was a good fight. I'm glad that we chose this fight. I gave Briggs the first round. Then the second and third, I gave them to Foreman. I thought, man, like I gotta say, he's got a good jab, and it's crazy how he's already got it kind of like extended to block the other guy's view, and he's still able to draw hella power. It's almost like a pawing jab that shoots straight down the middle. And then so round 4, I put that as a swing round.
Nopal, you still there, brother? You might be breaking up a little bit.
Can you guys hear me still?
We can hear you now, brother.
Okay.
Yes.
I had a phone call right now. So round 4, I had it a swing round. I thought that this is right around where Briggs started to, because at first he didn't know what to do with that jab, you know? He can't even really see. And so round 5, he started kind of like experimenting a little, and he started establishing something. I gave him round 5. I also gave him round 6. I thought this was his biggest round of the fight, you know? And he managed to hit Foreman pretty good. And then round 7, I gave that to Foreman. Round 8, I gave it to Foreman. Round 9, I gave it to Foreman. Round 10, I have that a swing. No, I gave that to Briggs. And then round 11, I scored that swing. So I got 2 swing rounds. And then the last round, I gave it to Foreman. So I basically have this fight 8-4. Do I think it was a robbery? You know what? I thought that Briggs did all right. You know, really, the last round, some of these last rounds, I ended up giving them to I thought that they could all be like swing rounds. You know, like, to be honest, I would have been okay with a draw, to be honest. And, but I mean, it could be a robbery, I guess. You know, the other dude's too old to keep going anyway, so I don't know, man. I'm not sure what to say, if it's a robbery or not, you know?
Yeah, that's like a non-answer, brother. I mean,
yeah.
So
I don't know what to say, man.
All right. Well, hey, I think this is the first time you've ever not committed one way or the other, but yeah, you could do whatever you like, man.
No, it's because, you know, it's like Foreman's style is more defined. You know, you could clearly see that he has a good game. Like, he's sticking to the script. You know, Shannon Briggs was doing a little bit of everything, and CompuBox did not favor him. So, you know, it's kind of a confusing way. And George Foreman didn't make it any better. He actually said in the end that the other guy won. So, you know what I mean? And he was trying to say that he wanted to just get on to the next one. And he was even promoting his grill. So, you know, that didn't really help. You know, that just added to my confusion.
Oh, man. All right, Nopal. Well, thanks very much, man. So Nopal is going to abstain from giving his official, whether it's a robbery or not, he's going to leave that up to everybody else. I had this fight 9-3 for George Foreman. I thought this was a very entertaining fight. Like, I haven't really, besides the Mora fight, which I hadn't seen in years, like, I hadn't seen like that second run of George Foreman. Besides when I was a kid and, you know, I was super, super young. So just like vague recollections, you know, but I kind of remembered Briggs, and it might have been more because of the Lewis fight, but you know, the way Briggs would kind of do like these lazy punches, like in the middle of a tie-up, I was like, oh yeah, that's the Briggs I remember. Just kind of like, I don't know. They weren't real. I mean, they were almost like throwaway punches. And later on, I want to ask you guys if that's something that you think should count. And I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about if you watch that fight. I want to give a shout out to Shannon Briggs' cut, man. That guy was hilarious, dude. He was like trying to inspire Briggs. He's like, come on, wake up. You know, like, why are you here? You know, listen to your trainer. Listen to him. You know what I mean? It was great, man. I thought that was awesome. Like, it was pretty cool to see this cut man step up and tell him, like, you do what your trainer tells you to do. And then the other guy be like, why you don't use your left hand? He's like, okay, I will. He's like, no, you're not using it. Use your left hand. It was great, man. Pretty good. The other thing too is, you know, I thought that the tie-ups from Foreman were quite lazy. I think if Briggs had more energy or gumption, he could have easily broken out of those before the ref went over and broke them up. Just very late. It kind of reminded me of the way like Valuev and Holyfield would just kind of like lazily hold each other. Well, I mean, I guess a lot of heavyweights do that, but I mean, and I know that there was concerns about Briggs's tank, even though he's like the much, much younger guy. I mean, I don't know, Briggs could damn near be his son. You know what I mean? So it's crazy to think that, like, you know, for some reason, you know, well, then again, you know, Foreman was the effective aggressor. Like, he'd be on the front foot. Briggs was the one dancing, you know what I mean? And so, you know, I gave this fight to Foreman because he was the effective aggressor. You know, I think that his punches would often offset any type of volume advantage that Briggs had. And so, the other thing too is like, I really did think that the ref, like, I wouldn't say it was like totally one sided, but I felt like that ref was really helping out Foreman. Like, he wasn't really involved too much, but you could tell like he was there to kind of like take care of like the cash cow, in my opinion. I don't think it affected the fight that much, but like, man, you could tell he was really protective of Foreman. That's what I have to say about it. And, that's something else I want to bring up. We were talking about, Foreman's age. The guy never fought after this, and like I said, a handful of fights before that, they were just cherishing this dude. But now all of a sudden, he's a little too old. We're worried about brain damage. How did this lineal thing, like, is that even real? Like I said, the spin was a lot different later on. And I want to know, like, just like Drew said, like, it almost seemed like they were trying to push him out, and if you're talking about Lewis and Holyfield, like, those guys had some very big promoters, very influential people. We're talking about Don King back in the day. You know what I mean? So, like, I want to ask you guys, like, do you think that Foreman, and by the way, I do classify it as a robbery, so we're going to classify this one as a robbery. Do you think that Foreman was too old to be competing?
Man, that's a good question, because even in, his loss against Holyfield, he still was pretty competitive. Like, he was still pretty much in the fight, but, the pictures show different. Sometimes, sometimes the bloody guy in the fight doesn't necessarily show exactly how the fight went. It happens, but to us now, yes, we think 48 is beyond, and if we think about it, and Foreman and Hopkins are probably like the first two guys we could think of that went past, their mid 40s and longevity in boxing and still be pretty competitive and go on to win some pretty big fights. But I think if we go the route of medically and the doctor looking out for his health, I think yes. And then Drew did make, like you said, Drew made the point of them trying to maybe hurry to push him out of there, make sure, because we know boxing is a business as well. So they're going to want to I think what they want is to keep a younger champion around, to kind of keep the fight. It's kind of like the basketball thing, right? You had Magic, you had Jordan, you had Kobe, you had LeBron, and then whoever's next. It's kind of like passing the torch. And same thing in boxing, especially like in the heavyweight division, especially with the heavyweight division being what it was in the 90s. And I think, of course, they were looking out for his health. I don't think they really wanted to try to keep an older guy around to keep to try to keep competing with these killers that were there, especially Lewis. And we saw what happened with Holyfield. So I would say, I mean, your body, you're only going to feel as good as your body as good as your body allows you to feel. So, I mean, if he was still feeling like he can compete, then cool. But I think from a spectator standpoint, I would say, yeah, I think 48 was pretty beyond where I think he was pretty much beyond where he should have been.
I hear you there, man. I resonate with a lot of that. Nopal, you have any thoughts on it, brother?
If you think about 48, I mean, yeah, you would, if you just go by age as a number, yeah, it was way past what he should have been doing. But, I believe that in this case, there's people that are like freaks of nature. You know what I mean? They counteract the rules of what we think is okay. So in his case, we've seen that even after his boxing career, he appeared to still be a very knowledgeable person. I mean, when you can you could contrast this with a person like when you hear a guy like Tank Davis talk, like you're like, hey, he already sounds punch drunk, but that's just his personality, and it might not be like that. But in George's case, I think that it was okay because he still sounds intelligent to this point, and I think in his case it was okay. So I think that it just depends. It's from fighter to fighter. We know that Muhammad Ali he didn't have a longevity just like that, but I don't think Muhammad Ali had the same type of chin or anything like that. I think George Foreman was born with that gift to be very durable. So I think in this case it was okay, and George Foreman did what he had to do. You know, so like I said, I mean, I think it's case by case. It depends on the person. We know Pacquiao was 42. Marquez was like, I forget how old he was. He's thinking about coming back. You know what I mean? It just depends on the fighters. But typically I think, around 35, some boxers, they around 35 they're done. You know what I mean? Their chin doesn't hold up. It just depends.
Oh yeah, I mean, all great points. The only thing I'd like to add to that is like there was this concern that somehow Foreman was like tying up like the middle rankings and not allowing people to pass them. And I don't know, man. If you have a sideshow act of somebody who's like legitimately top 10, and from what I could tell, based on the names that were offered to Foreman, like it seems to me like at the time it was a pretty healthy heavyweight division with a lot of options. There was the old guard and the new up and comers. So I mean, was Foreman tying anything up? I mean, not really. I mean, by this time you could see that boxing had kind of moved on to Holyfield and Lewis. So I mean, you could go straight to them, and it seemed like those guys were much more coveted as the real champions. And that is pretty old, 48. We rescored Value versus Holyfield, and that would have made Holyfield the oldest champion ever. But it would have been a trinket title at 46, right? So interesting considerations. All right. We got Gringo in the house. He says, "What's up? Checking out my bros talk boxing while on the clock. My Friday is looking up already. Great to see you here, brother. And just so you know, we classified Foreman versus Briggs as a certified robbery. And then, we never got to see Foreman again. But I'm glad I get to go see it, because I don't know, like I don't know why I remembered him like maybe losing towards the end, or maybe it's just him taking a lot of punches. But I mean, he was winning, So I definitely want to give a shout out to George Foreman because I kind of went on a little binge of his older fights, but I haven't really watched. I'm going to go back and watch that one Axel Schultz fight to see if that was a robbery. I don't know if I'm going to bring it to the Al Chile table because, I mean, if you think about it, there are always more and more robberies. Like we could go deeper and deeper, but the main thing was to kind of do the high profile ones. So we'll talk about that another time, but I want to give a shout out to Big George Foreman. All right, man. Well, let's get into it. We have one hell of a fight coming up this weekend. At 135, we got Tank Davis versus Rolly Romero. Now, there's been a lot of talk about this fight, and the weigh-in happened earlier today. So let me just show this. This was pretty funny.
Tank Davis versus Rolando Rolly Romero.
All right. So I guess you could say that Rolly won the press conference, but Tank won the weigh-in. So what do you think, George, about this fight, man? Tell us what do you think the strengths and advantages are for each, and who do you have winning this fight?
Man, I know this fight was supposed to be made, I think, at the end of last year. When it was talked about, people were like, wow, okay, come on. Like, Davis, you're going to really go after this guy. And I still kind of feel that way. Like, all right, Davis, come on. Like, your promoters, your management team is saying you're the best at 135 or from 130 to 147 when you haven't really fought anybody. So when this fight was talked about, I think a lot of us were like, well, this isn't a fight we want to see. But you got Romero, man. He's sharp with it. He's a good shit talker. I think just the lead up now, it pretty much it made it more intriguing. It just kind of made you a little excited to see exactly what's going to happen. And that's the beauty of pre-fight stuff, like you got like Romero, good shit talker, saying he's going to knock him out in the first round. I mean, let's be honest. How many times have we seen a high profile fight where the guy says, I'm going to knock him out in earlier rounds and it happens? I mean, if it happens, that shit would be absolutely crazy. But I mean, yeah, I guess the lead up to it this week, yesterday's press conference, today's weigh-in, I actually got me a little excited to see what's going to really happen. And then I think the other thing another thing you can add into this is, I guess, just the styles. And I think that's one of the points that everybody brings up is Rolly Romero's style is unorthodox. It's awkward. It's going to give Davis a little trouble. I think it will give Davis a little bit of trouble, and not to the point where he's getting beat up or getting hurt. I think it's going to take him a few rounds to kind of pick up on him, especially because, traditionally, I said this yesterday too, traditionally boxers know how to train basics. They know how the proper footwork, the head movement, distance, how to time your opponent. When you have a guy like Romero, it throws you off a little bit. Like they say, you need that dancing partner, right? And I think Romero isn't the dancing partner for him. He's going to make it a little awkward in the beginning. And I know, and then I also heard this as well, like people comparing him to the Mayorga without the cigarette. I thought that was pretty funny. I mean, I'm definitely going to say you just got to look at the Vegas odds, right? I'm sure you could pull them up. Chicano, there they are right there. You know, they eventually shrunk. Like it started to not be so much in the favor of Davis as it was in the beginning. So I don't know what there is that something that Vegas sees, or they're believing the hype that Romero's, you know, at these press conferences, you know, talking shit. So, but I mean, the way I see this happening, I see like the first 3 rounds. I think Davis shouldn't go in, you know, try to feed into what Romero's trying to do. Let Romero kind of tire himself out. I was even seeing a couple interviews on Fight Hype. The Vargas brothers, they do like Romero, and they were, you know, saying, oh, we kind of gave him a little advice, you know, don't go in there and try to knock him out, you know, try to box a little bit, you know, because that's what he's expecting from you if you want to have a chance. But they did pick Davis either way, even though Rolly's their boy. I don't think this fight goes past 8. And I see Davis possibly making him quit.
All
with
right.
the puncher's chance. With the puncher's chance going to Romero. I want to add that in there.
I hear you, brother. All right. Thank you very much, George. Nopal, how do you see this fight, brother?
Ah, man, I don't know, bro. It's, you know, like if you use intelligence, you think that Davis is gonna completely whitewash Romero, but just the confidence that he brings to the table, you know, or at least if he's acting, man, what a great actor. Um, you know, and I'll tell you that bets are changing a lot. You know, the line of betting is changing. It's because Rolly's telling everybody they need to bet their house on him. You know, so there's people that go by that and say, hey, let me bet at least 50. There's other people betting up to like a lot of money based on the confidence that Rolly's showing. And you never know. I mean, he could probably land he's got a puncher's chance. He could probably land a haymaker and get Tank out of there. But, you know, if you just use intelligence, it's Davis. But, you know, I'm really excited for this fight, man. And, you know, like I've been saying before, you know, I just wanted to kind of just these, you know, this type of fight, even though it seems like a mismatch, I just, you know, just sit back and enjoy it, man. That's about all I could say, you know.
Definitely. Like, I think this one will be enjoyable. Like, I felt like last week was a little bit like too one-sided, but well, actually the odds do reflect like the odds are half as close, right? I mean, so well, actually it depends on which statistic you're looking at, but if, you know, Tank is a minus 800 favorite, Benavidez was like a 20-1 favorite. So, I mean, this fight is closer and it's more exciting. And I do think that Rolly is formidable, man. And before I go any further, Sean wants to know if we feel it was a logistical error for Tank to announce him leaving Mayweather. I mean, it shouldn't go the distance, but you never know. It's boxing. I mean, that's a great point. I do think that the timing of everything is interesting. And you know what? I think that there are trap fights in boxing. Like, for some reason, people seem to think that boxing is like this super clean sport. But I mean, if you ask me, and I've said this before, you know, historically, boxing is a corrupt sport. Historically, there's been dives, and I haven't seen any type of entity that just goes from corrupt to uncorrupt. That's just how I feel, you know. So, do I think any type of fix is in? I wouldn't say so. Nothing like that. But you know, I don't think that Tank did himself any favors talking like that before, you know, and he's kind of changed his tune very recently. But you know, then again, I do think that Tank needs to breathe a little bit. Like, man, Floyd's always whispering in his ear before the fight, during the fight, in the corner, afterwards. Like, he's all over the place. I mean, and to have a legend like Mayweather there, I mean, that's super flattering, you know. But I mean, Tank needs to build his own name. On top of that, you know, he needs to spread his own wings. Like, let's be honest, you know, like if we're just going to keep it out Chile here, like, you know, Tank's resume is not very good for all the hype that he gets. I mean, the guy's, what is he, like 26, 27? Like, you know, he's fighting for, I mean, paper belts, like, you know, like the baby belts, like they're not even the main belts. He's jumping up and down in weight. I mean, people give Canelo a hard time, but he's always facing like the best or undefeated real champions in these divisions when he does it. Tank does the same thing, but against fighters who, I mean, seemingly, you know, I guess you could say that they're undefeated, but I mean, nobody was really giving, you know, a lot of these fighters a chance, you know. And on top of that, you know, I got to say, like, I like the way Rolly is talking, man. I do, you know, he's sitting there going like, oh, you know, Tank brought up these guys from 126 and Barrios had to drain himself in a tub for 8 hours before the weigh-in. And I'm the strongest fighter he's ever faced, strongest puncher. Ask anybody, I'm a harder puncher, you know. And I'm sitting here listening to him make these arguments. And, I kind of get excited. And, sometimes you can just break down a fight and go, yeah, I kind of see it this way, that way, and George and Nopal, you guys had great breakdowns, but just following Rolly's logic, I think I'm going to pick Rolly for the upset on this one, man. I'm going to have some fun with it. He told me to bet some money, and I did. Now, granted, I have seen people in the past say, hey, bet some money on me. We're about to make some money, and they lost, right? Recent memory comes, I have to say, like Teofimo Lopez said that, right? And, if you bet money on him, you lost. I remember Ricky Hatton was adamant about betting money on him against Mayweather. He said, oh, bet your house, bet this, bet that. He had a lot of, like, self-belief, and I think that self-belief can only get you so far. But, to me, I think, like, the idea of, like, Tank just walking dudes down and just beating them up, I think that's a little bit over with as he steps up his level of competition. I rewatched that Isaac Cruz fight, and there were some things I noticed. One, like, he definitely has a great skill set. Like, the guy can box off the back foot. He's very aggressive, great counter puncher, can also lead, but I mean, he's never been tagged like this before. Like, I think Rolly's going to bring it to him, and Rolly's mean, man. And he knows how to throw people off of him. I believe that Rolly thinks he can win, and I have one hell of a record this year as far as predictions go. Like, I know the HCP network has been disbanded, but I mean, I have probably the best record out of all of them. You know what I mean? And I wish we could keep track, but, I was starting to call myself the upset specialist of 2022. I have a great upset prediction record. On top of that, people were burning their picks with Ugas, Castano. I've just been, I didn't pick either of those guys. I've been safe. So I'm due to kind of just, put myself out there. Plus, if I'm right, I'm really going to look good. I'm really going to look good. Plus, you shouldn't be taking picks so seriously anyway. So I'm going with Rolly Romero for the upset. You know what I mean? And I'm looking forward to this one.
I love it. I love it, man. I love it.
Great
and then,
confidence, Chicano.
Yeah, for
Go
sure,
ahead,
man.
George.
I'm sorry. Yeah. And then I remember Romero from a couple years ago as well, trying to get a Ryan Garcia fight. Like, everybody's seen the videos on YouTube of him and Ryan sparring. And I know sparring doesn't really dictate how a fight is going to turn out, but I just think, man, and I think another good point also is the size, right? This is Tank Davis's probably actual, like, first big size-wise fighter. I mean, I know he fought Barrios at 147, but everybody's saying that he pretty much, he wasn't competitive, or we expected that. And you know what? And Barrios did keep it pretty competitive. So I think it will be interesting to see. And hey, man, if you're going with that, Chicano, I respect it, because I know you're the betting man, and you want to bet the house on it and win. And yeah, and I even said it too. I don't remember whose chat I was on, but I'm like, look, if you're gonna make a bet, I mean, I think this is that one where you could say I'm gonna take the bet and go with it. And then to Gringo's point too about the him saying that he's gonna possibly leave. I don't know if you guys saw, but this was a while back. He said it's time for him to take the training wheels off, and this will be his last fight. And then I think he even backtracked a couple of days ago, saying that he didn't say that it was his last fight, and that he still feels like he's going to be there with them. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if they, behind the scenes, they gave him a scolding, told him he can't have his soul back. So, he's stuck now. He signed his name in blood with TMT, Ellerby, and Mayweather. But I believed, he was talking a little bit of shit. He was taking a little bit of shots at Floyd. We didn't see Floyd. I don't even think he was there at the weigh-in or at the last press conference. So I don't know what there is, what's going on behind closed doors. But I believed that if this fight was close enough, goes 12 rounds, I'm just saying, man, it would possibly, they were looking for, at the time they were looking for the next TMT fighter. There's really nobody in that stable. Why wouldn't you push somebody like a Rolly, give them that split decision win? So now you got somebody who, I mean, come on, just think about it. I think just alone on this, he pretty much sold most of of us. You could add us in there.
I'm telling you, man, and you never know. Like, I was having some thoughts about just like recent big high profile upsets, and they seem to happen on the zone. If you think about like the Mikey Garcia, Sandor Martin fight, the Teofimo Lopez fight, the Joshua Ruiz fight, Canelo Bivol, like big, like high profile upsets, like they don't really tend to happen anywhere else besides the zone, but it's bound to happen somewhere else eventually and legitimately. You know what I mean? Okay, so I gotta say, dude. Okay, so I wasn't gonna do this. Nopal talked me out of it. I'm just gonna get into a little bit. I would have had a beautiful slideshow presentation for this, with some fine little Latinas. Nopal, you know where I'm going with this. Since George, since
Wait, Chicano,
should I not go there?
go. If you want to do it, man, just go for it. Go all out, bro. You're already on a rampage with your bets, and let me say that you actually convinced me to put some money on Rolly too. You know,
Do it, man. There's some good odds. Okay, now
just roll with it, man. Do your original spill. Let's hear
well,
it.
okay. I'm only gonna give you guys a taste because I have more screenshots of this. Okay, I'm just gonna give you a little bit of a taste of why there's bad blood between Rolly Romero and Ryan Garcia. Now there is bad blood going on. Okay, did you see the text, George, on this one?
No, I did not. I saw you. I know you threw a message out there. I didn't get a chance to read it. Hey, they do have real bad blood. That's a legit rivalry right there.
And, people think it's because of the sparring, but there's an underlying reason here. And I got some screenshots. Okay, so I follow Ryan Garcia's. Well, actually, I follow both of his baby mamas, and his, side pieces, so I kind of, it's my excuse to follow girls in their early 20s, right?
Okay, quote unquote.
Yeah, quote unquote, right. So Ryan Garcia had his first baby mama, right? I won't say her name. If you want, you could find her, right? But Ryan Garcia subsequently left her while she was pregnant, upgraded to this. I don't know. Actually, it wasn't even an upgrade. She was a model, but very bony, to a girl named Sierra Brave, and he actually did the same thing again to his more recent baby mama. But his first initial baby mama got left, right? And she was a feisty little thing, and she had some screenshots that she sent out. And well, here's the boxing cheeseman for you all. Rolly smashed Ryan's baby mama, the first one, okay? And then she was getting all pissed because the new lady, and you know how new girlfriends are, they kind of impose themselves, get a little territorial, so the original baby mama clapped back on Twitter. And this is just one screenshot that I'm going to read, but basically it's Ryan like drunk texting the original baby mama. And there's a handful of these. I'm only going to read one for your entertainment pleasure. I might be the only person who has these. I've never heard anybody talk about it. On top of that, I was on Twitter at the right time because she deleted them very quickly. But here's what Ryan has to say to his first baby mama when he found out about what was going on between her and Rolly. Phone been dead on that long flight. I realized my heart is broken. I cried a lot and thought about you. Killed my heart by doing what you did. Took a part of me away. I wouldn't even know how to explain to Riley how her mother actually crossed her daddy like that and caused me to lose all hope on a family. Yeah, I may have went wild for a little while, enjoyed being a rock star, but by no means would I ever cross you like that. You can kick and scream all you want, but it's done. Everything. Just forget any chances. Just promise me you'll never let that ugly ass, short fucking mushroom looking motherfucker ever come close to my daughter. Find an honest man, at least that, and a godly man, and I will respect that. What do you guys think?
Wow.
Dude, I got, there's some other ones that are really good, but that's just the taste. Maybe I'll have to come out, and do just like a little documentary here. I have a couple of mixed thoughts on that, because I thought, well, this is kind of their business, but I'm like, well, they're the ones who are airing all this shit out anyways. You know what I mean? So does anybody have anything to add on that? Does anybody want to say anything? Or, I don't know, you could get into it with me, but if you feel above it, I get that too. But, since you're here listening, I just wanted to give you guys all that information.
Man, Chicano, I'm surprised that you didn't call TMZ up with this shit,
Well, I'll tell you this. I was sitting on it, hoping that they would cross paths, right? So then I could have some real information that nobody else would have, right? But it just seemed like this fight might not happen. So I thought, well, should I talk about this? And I was going to have a slideshow with all these women in bikinis and their thongs and the side pieces and do this nice little timeline because I'm a bit bitter that Ryan Garcia has this rock star lifestyle. He's got the good life, no doubt about it, but he has a heart. He feels, you know what I mean? So, it's, and guys, we're like that, it's like we can go do things, but if the ex does something, we're all pissed off about it. How does that one work?
I mean, the worst part about it, though, in this situation is if it's true, because there's still a possibility that we're talking about the wrong guy, small possibility maybe. But, it's like, like in Ryan's case, why'd you have to go choose that guy? Maybe I might have to fight him one of these days as an opponent. And, now you went and chose that guy. You could have had anybody else, you know what I mean? But you had to get with one of the rivals, and what's weird about it is they're actually been talking good about each other, you know what I mean? So I don't know, it seems like they smashed the beef.
It's true though, you're right, because I think it was Ellie Setback. Actually, he asked Ryan Garcia at the gym what he thought about the fight, and it seemed like Ryan didn't really have like any kind of like bad blood towards him. He saying that he backs Rolly early on. He thinks that he can make it interesting. Typically, you know, if the beef was as we thought it was, it'd be pretty bad. But he was pretty respectful. He was pretty respectable about it. And I even think Rolly said that Ryan Garcia does have some good power. So
Well, I mean, you both make good points because I mean, if she's a free lady to do what she wants, she's a free lady to do what she wants, and she was rolling in those circles. I could see that whole aspect of like, why him out of all people? Like, that's never really happened to me, but I mean, I could see that being pretty painful, especially if you're a young kid. But I mean, if you're going around just like smashing all these social media girls at will, and these are just the ones that we know about, like, I mean, it's hard for him to be judgmental, maybe he has progressed and now he's married and he's got, a new thing going on. So, I mean, to harbor old feelings about an old flame, they didn't stick with. I mean, I don't know. Okay, so I appreciate you guys entertaining me on that one. And if they ever fight, I'm going to have a nice slideshow. I'm going to reveal all the slides, all the text that I have, and it's only going to make it more clear that this is a legitimate screenshot because there's no doubt about it. But like I said, it was only up for like a fragment of a second. I just happened to be on Twitter at the time. You know what I mean?
man,
so
you can go to TMZ with this anonymously. So
Damn, not anonymously. People get money for this type of shit. That's what I meant, Chicano.
well, I'll tell you this, dude. Like, I thought about like when if I was gonna upload the screenshots, I was gonna like impose like our channel name on it or something, so nobody could just use it because people totally would use it, especially the other things that are said. Like I said, I'm gonna keep it, keep it in my back pocket. Maybe one day I'll use it, but if not, that's okay too. And if they ever get wind that we talked about, that's all I can say is that I'm sorry. I don't like to upset beautiful young ladies like that, but it is what it is. And Ryan shouldn't care. He's got his own thing going on. So let's change the subject and wrap this one up, fellas. Let's figure out what we're going to do next for our controversial rescore for next week. So I've updated it a little bit. We have a couple of options that are new. We have Diaz versus Malignaggi at 135. Now, that one's been talked about on Twitter recently. And I thought, I do remember that one being considered a robbery. As I remember it, it was more about the wide scorecards, not necessarily that the wrong guy got the nod, but there are people now trying to frame it as a robbery, including Paulie Malignaggi, but that's not what he said at first, but people are trying to remember it that way. And then also Golovkin versus Davarian Chanco. Now, with that particular fight, I thought, okay, well, we're going to wait on that one. But since, because then we would be able to assess what Golovkin looks like now. But now we have more information on Golovkin because he fought Murata. So I thought, okay, well, this one we can take a look at because I do want to take a look at Golovkin versus Davarian Chanco to see if he really does have that great record, because that's kind of a controversial fight. And then we're still going to get to that Martinez versus Martin Murray because I want to see if Canelo's lineal championship does hold. So, Nopal, I think you picked the last one, brother. So, George, what do you think, man? Is there any fight here that you'd like to choose?
Oh man, you put me on the spot. I knew it. Yeah, I think with the Golovkin and Davranchenko, we could probably hold off on that one, even though it's a juicy one. It's pretty fresh in our mind. The Diaz and Malignaggi, I do remember that Malignaggi. Man, I know we keep putting off the Zarate and Pintor. You know what?
It's true. It's been there forever.
Yeah, that one's been just lingering, man. Oh shit, because I really do. I would love to do the Diaz and Malignaggi.
Whatever you want, brother. Whatever you want, man.
God damn it! All right. You know what? Let's just get the Zarate and Pintor out of the way, man. It's there collecting dust on the shelf somewhere, So I think we should just get that one out of the way. I mean, the next three are juicy, so.
It is, and 118 pounds. I don't think we've ever gone that low. So time to see a high volume fight. I am looking forward to it, and sometimes I get surprised when there's a rescore that I'm not necessarily looking forward to. All of a sudden, like after the fight, I'm like, man, that was great. Like, to be honest, like even though I liked Foreman, he was a likable guy, I really wasn't looking forward to that Foreman versus Briggs one too much, honestly. But I found myself really enjoying that fight, and that happens a lot when we do these rescores. So I'm going to be optimistic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well, for George with Off the Ropes Boxing and MMA and the homie Nopal Buxianos, we are out. Peace out, everyone.